All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the SciArt live stream. That is some people creating interesting art. It is like a podcast, but it's better because you can actually draw along with us, interact with us, and all of that. So, whether you're watching this now or you're watching a replay later, you can always join us. We try to do this every 2 weeks or so. We get off sometimes, but you can watch us work on these creative projects while we also discuss interesting topics about science, art, or like whatever else is going on. So today we're really just kind of chilling and just having some fun drawing. And also, unlike a podcast, if you're watching live, you can contribute to the conversation through the chat. You can watch this on Periscope or on YouTube. Both of them have a chat, and I will be keeping my eye on the chats as we go. So if anyone has a question, comment, or anything like that, I can share that with everyone. If you want to see the archived recordings or upcoming schedule, I have all of that and more information available on my website. That is gaiusjaugustus.com/SciArt-livestream. Again, that's gaiusjaugustus.com/SciArt-livestream. And you can also get to my website from my Twitter profile. So if you don't know how to spell my name, you can go there, and the SciArt livestream has a link right at the top. So if you don't know me already, I am Gaius Augustus. I am a visual storyteller. And today I'm going to be continuing working on this comic that I've been working on for, it feels like forever, about my trans experience and how that has informed my thoughts on science. And as usual, I am joined by my co-host, Jen. Jen, why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know what you're working on today.
Hi, my name is Jen. I am a postdoc, or a researcher. I hadn't really planned anything for today. I was just going to take it easy, draw whatever came up, and yeah, hopefully come up with something within the hour.
Sounds good. That's always a good plan. That's technically
Yeah,
what I did last time, right?
right.
So I just
So
kind of came up with something. I had the prompt though, so we'll see.
you did. I think I'm gonna because I guess I still have experiments in my mind. I'm going to draw mice, but
Sounds good.
not just cute little mice.
Sounds great. So have you
Yeah.
drawn since we last streamed?
Um, Not really. I've been pretty busy with, my, with work. I just submitted a grant that took up all of my life. I could not do anything
Yeah,
other
I'll
than
bet.
write. Like it was wake up, eat, write, sleep. But it is done, and most of the time
And it got
that's all that
submitted on
matters.
time.
Yes. 5 minutes to the
True.
deadline, it got in, and yeah.
That's when the best things
Uh,
are submitted, I hear.
yeah, I hope
I
so.
don't know. I believe in you.
Uh,
And
Thank
even
you.
and even if you don't get the grant, you still did a great job
I
because you
did.
know what? It's getting harder and harder. Um,
And
and that's not cool.
I could always repurpose it for another grant.
That's true.
It's not the end of the world. But, it's done. We'll see how they like it.
So how much as a postdoc, how much of the work writing and stuff do you do compared to when you were a grad student?
Ooh, man, it's a lot more than I had to take responsibility for all of it, from
Oh wow.
um, the the budget and the research plan,
Oh wow.
everything. I mean, I did have some help with the budget, but I still had to come up with it. It's weird. Sorry, I'm just gonna check out something. My pen's not working.
Uh-oh.
Maybe I'll just close the program and reopen it. Shoot. There you go. Still not working.
Oh.
Well, one moment. I'm going to disconnect, and I think I just need to sync up my pen.
Okay.
So I'll be back.
Sounds good.
I mean, I'll be here, but my screen will not be. Okay.
Right.
All right. I don't know. I have little issues with this. It's working just fine. How about you? How are things going?
Going pretty well. So actually, anyone who's been like following my Twitter profile, I was just streaming right before this because I had this big project I've been working on that
I know what it is.
I finally got some like closure on, and so I just needed to kind of finish it up, and I knew it wouldn't take me forever, but I knew it would take me a little while, and I was worried that if I just like put it off, that it just wouldn't get done, and so I just said, you know what, I am always so productive when I get on a stream, and so I got on and talked to myself for 2 hours while I streamed. A couple people did come in and talk,
Nice.
but for the most part, it was me talking to myself, which is fine. That's again the point for me really is to make sure that I can get something done. You know,
And you have said that you made progress on this comic while on stream.
I'm always happy if I make any progress on this comic in general, but definitely on stream. And again, like I don't get to work on this otherwise because I have all these other projects
Yeah.
um, going on, and these are my other projects are people who pay me up front, and so they're kind of higher priority. And this one also, like, I've had a lot of feels about this comic, and so I think that's also been a little bit of why I've struggled a little bit with it.
Mm.
Because I finished my PhD, and then I kind of struggled to find a job for a little while, and you know, you kind of like are just trying to like deal with all those feelings, and if at the same time you're writing about how you feel about science in that same sense, then I think that it's just kind of like I needed a little bit of time to deal with a lot of those feelings.
Definitely. Definitely. It was a little too close to home when you were drawing this comic, and you needed
Yes.
time to distance yourself from it, right?
Yeah, and when I started it, I was still in my PhD, and so I was, in the thick of things. But
Yeah.
since April, I just needed some time to kind of like back away from some of this stuff that was happening in my PhD
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what the heck I'm doing with my life.
Oh man. Yeah, because we go through that long period of just like research and that stuff, but it doesn't really give us time to think about what our next step. It's always assumed that we're going to go into academia or something like that. But
So true.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
I wasn't sure where I was going to end up. I was kind of applying all over the place
mm,
because I knew I wanted to stay in my current town, and so the jobs aren't exactly like overflowing here
yeah,
outside of the university, of course. And I was
uh,
like not necessarily wanting to work at the university. So, I mean, same thing a lot of people go through, I think.
yeah, searching, looking for a job, and then eventually finding one. Yeah, I went through that too. Um, after I defended, I spent a little time trying to figure out, okay, what I did want to stay where I was previously at, but then eventually I wanted to move back home because, you know, family and that stuff.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, it's a lot harder when you are geographically limited.
yes.
Although I feel like San Diego is better than Tucson. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's
Well,
not.
I mean, it depends on what you're it depends on what you're looking for in terms of jobs, in terms
That's true.
I mean, I think so. There are two major industries here. I think there's the tech industry and and also the biotech industry, and then um, UCSD. And I feel like I've read that the university is the largest employer in San Diego. So,
Not surprising.
right? So, um, it also depends on if you want to do, like, if you want to work for the university. And I mean, it has its perks, it really does.
Definitely.
But,
Yeah, I have my job now, and I'm a contractor,
mm-hmm,
and the job is pretty good. The travel has been a little bit of a kind of frustrating thing, but the actual job, you know, it's pretty good. But I'm a contractor, which means that I am not actually working for the company that I work at.
right,
I'm working through a third party company, and the third party company, like the people are great,
right.
um, but the benefits are not so great, and the insurance, which I didn't think was going to be the biggest problem in the world, has ended up being a
Mm.
big headache.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
that's kind of left me very frustrated. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, the insurance at the university is so good. And, you compare. So I have a $3,500 deductible, and my insurance pays zero until I get to that deductible.
Hmm.
And
Um,
it, right, and it's not so great. Especially since I think that's fine if, like, you don't think you're going to be using a lot of things.
mm-hmm,
But I've been having a lot of health issues, which I think I've talked about before.
mm-hmm.
And because of that, I'm actively going to doctors and trying to figure out what's going on, which means that I'm actively using my benefits and inching and having to pay the full price for every doctor that I see.
Oh,
So it's been frustrating, and that's like and I pay $350 every paycheck for that.
oh wow.
So it's just like it's expensive.
Wait, you pay $300 for your insurance,
Yes, every 2 weeks.
and then they don't cover. You have
Right.
to meet a deductible. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's unfair.
Yeah.
You're paying for something that doesn't kick into effect until like you meet some sort of oh,
Exactly.
what?
So yeah, so I've been very frustrated about all of that, and all I keep hearing is like I have a lot of friends who work for the university, and they talk a lot about how like great that insurance is. It's like $100 per paycheck, and you just have a copay, like $20 to $50 copay, depending on who you're seeing, and the deductible, and that's until your deductible. And then they cover everything, and the deductible is like super low, like in the hundreds of dollars. And it's just like, it's so frustrating because I didn't really want necessarily to work at the university for a while. I needed some time off.
Mm,
But then you hear about things like that, and you're like, wow. And I did the math.
mm-hmm.
So I actually took how much I get paid and how much there were a couple of positions that I could get at the university. I took that amount and I saw what the equivalency would be, and I could get paid. I think it was something like $15,000 or $20,000 less per year,
Mm-hmm.
and make the exact same amount at the end of the day,
Wow.
because of the cost of
Right.
my gas, my travel there and back. It's like a 45-minute drive, and because of the cost of the insurance. So these
Things gotta
things
work.
make me think.
One moment. I didn't want that to be on the stream. Oh
Yeah. But at the
man.
same time, like I'm doing something different, and in general, my job is good. Like the people are good, and um, the work is interesting. So I don't like to complain too much, but
Right.
it is
There
kind
are
of,
things.
yeah, you know,
There are things that need to be. Yeah. This whole insurance thing.
I know.
Insurance in general. Oh my gosh.
It's a total nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, oh man. And like, although like the university, I mean, I'm working at the university I went to in undergrad. Um, Even though it's like there are some cons to it, their benefits are definitely something to take advantage of. When
Mm.
I'm not necessarily so, as a postdoc, we're considered an academic, so we're not necessarily staff. We're a special type of staff.
Oh,
If
interesting.
because postdocs are only maximum 5 years. We're transient, so we're not expected to stay um, for a long
Uh,
time,
that makes sense.
right? So, but if you were staff, then your benefits would be a lot better than the postdoc. So even if my insurance is decent, it does cover a lot, but like compared to someone who is staff, it's not as it doesn't cover as much.
Right.
But more motivation, I guess, to like move on, I guess, because I they want to, I guess, discourage people from being postdocs for a long time.
Well, in some ways that's good, right? Because I
Yeah.
know that there were problems in the past where,
Yes.
advisors would have people work forever because they knew they could do it, I guess, for lack of a
Yeah.
better way to say it.
No, I've seen that. Like there'd be people who would be in a postdoc position for probably like 10 years and you're like, "What? That's legal? You can do that?"
Yeah.
Cuz that's a training position. So you're going
Right.
to
Like, it's not meant to be forever.
yeah. You're going to say that you're training for 10 years for what? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I think I saw a tweet from you that you said that your job is allowing you to work remotely now.
Well, so I got my advisor, I got my supervisor to agree to let me work 1 day a week from home starting off.
Mhm.
And part of that is just that the drive is actually like really, really like killed my health.
Mm.
Uh, so it's made so this kind of nerve pain thing that I've been having for a couple of years now has been slowly getting worse.
Oh.
And when I started the job, it started getting worse faster. And
Hmm.
I thought it was like some of the work environment stuff, like the seat and like all these other things that like there's so many variables, right? Like so many reasons.
Yep.
Um, but I got a bunch of accommodations from my company, and so my workspace is actually rather comfortable now. But I'm still struggling,
Hmm.
and the only thing that has not changed is my commute.
I see.
And it's gotten to the point where so my contract goes out in April, and I pretty much told my supervisor I'm not sure I'll be able to stay past April because my health has been so bad and it hasn't like gotten any better, and I think that the commute is a huge reason for that.
Mm.
And so I think that that was a reasonable reason for her to be like, okay, well, would this help? Like, she doesn't want me working from home like full time, but she's like, well, if this can help, then maybe it's worth it. So
Yep.
fingers crossed it helps. I think she probably would allow me to do up to maybe 2 days a week, and I think that I'll 1 day a week I think will make a huge difference if it's in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, because like if I could
Uh-oh.
Off 2 days, that I was actually pretty surprised that
Mm.
she agreed to it. But I didn't actually ask. I just told her this was an issue and told her that it was probably going to affect the future. So I think I did it in an okay enough way that I kind of put her in the situation of power. Like she could offer that
Mm.
without me being like, please. So I think that's good news, and we'll see how it goes.
Good negotiation skills.
Right? I know. Like really, if I could just make it through April, I think I would. And I've been looking for other jobs because I'm not sure how long I can keep this one
Mm.
without working remotely. And I was also having trouble um, finding remote jobs. Same kind of issues. Like people are just really shy about having remote workers, and I hear all sorts of like horror stories that don't exist. They're just like, well, what if this happens, or what if
Yeah.
people don't do their job? And I'm just
Or
like,
I
are you
heard.
watching them all day when they're at work? How do you know they're doing their work all day when they're there?
Exactly. Again, it's like you can be there 8 hours a day, but that doesn't ensure you that you're going to be doing 8 hours of work.
Exactly. So isn't it better to just let people work in a place where they feel the most comfortable? And I know a lot of people who don't want to work from home because they feel like they can't be productive.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm definitely way more productive when I'm at home than when I'm out places, because mostly because of the pain, but also just because like it's your
You're
environment.
comfortable, yeah.
So yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. Have you ever worked remote anywhere?
no, that like I've I've never had the opportunity to do that because most of my time I've just been working either in I've been working in labs my whole career, so always have to be there, always have to be present. So no, and it seems a little foreign to me because again, I have to be physically there to in case like someone has a question or I have to run an assay or such and such. But
Yeah.
I think that would be a nice change.
What about while you're working on your like proposal for your grants?
I was so for that I had I was in my office because I found that that was the best place for me to focus. So I think I'm the opposite. If I have to focus on something that's really academic, like focused on work, I have to be at my office. And I think also it's because of access. I don't have a
Right.
proxy server to PubMed or anything like that. So if I needed to look up a paper, I'm either I and I don't have access to it because of paywalls and that stuff, then
Right.
I don't know what I can do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Although when I was in grad school, I would write at I guess this is what you would consider remote. I would write at local Starbucks
Mm-hmm.
because for some odd reason I couldn't concentrate at my at the lab. Much to my supervisors, like, well, eh, he had to deal with it.
Yeah. So at
I mean,
some level, like that's just how things are, right?
yeah, as long as something's getting done, right?
Exactly, and that's the most important thing. Is like,
Yeah.
is the stuff getting done that needs to get done?
Hmm.
And I think sometimes there's a little too much focus on like people working the same way. Like there's this
Mm-hmm.
idea that we all work the same way,
Yep.
but that's not true at all.
Yep. I totally agree. It's like this is the way that people have been doing it for so long, and
Totally.
since they've been successful, this is the only way you're able to do it.
Yeah, I feel like that is often how people think about things. And I think that
Yeah.
most people just aren't actually used to thinking outside of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
too, you know?
Yep.
Like, I don't think most people have ever thought, like, oh, maybe other people work differently than me. This is how I work and how I get things done, so that must be how everyone does.
Yes, because it's what works for me. Hmm. Reminds me of something. Forgot the term of it, but like I guess there's this psychological experiment where you're a bunch of volunteers were presented with a candle, a box of tacks, and a matchstick, and the goal was to hang the candle so that the wax doesn't fall onto the ground.
Hmm.
So, and it took a while for people to do it, and very few of them actually thought of emptying the box of tacks, using that as a candle holder, and adhering it to the wall. Because then
Hmm.
you see, oh, tacks, candle, match, and matches. Okay, how am I going to do this? Not
Right.
considering that there's a the box that contains the tacks could also be used.
Exactly. Interesting.
And yeah.
I always find stuff like that, like, just really intriguing about just how different people think about things.
Mm-hmm. And
My partner's always like, why didn't you go into neuroscience?
oh, we would love to have you.
I know. Well, I just couldn't find. I actually tried in my when I started my PhD program. I actually went to the neuroscience department, and I actually did
Mhm.
try to find a advisor there, and
Mm.
there wasn't anyone who I felt really fit my personality.
Ah, I see.
So you know, details.
I I was always interested in neuroscience, but I went into my program thinking I was gonna work with a specific PI in
Hmm.
immunology because that's what I did my postbachelorate work on. So I guess I should just follow up with that. I wasn't really interested in the labs, or either that the labs that I was interested in were full. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out something. And I stumbled upon neuroscience and never looked back because it was so fun. It's
I just
like,
think it's so interesting to like dive into the most complicated part of us, you know?
yeah, it's like we take a lot of these things for granted, like our senses.
Totally.
We think that, oh, since it's so simple, sight should be easy to be able to replicate when it's not. It's like a really hard thing to, um, I don't know if we have any good artificial uh, eyes or cameras, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're only scratching the surface of it, even with like, yeah.
And I feel that way about a lot of things actually. Like I feel like as scientists we're very concerned with what we know about things.
Mm-hmm.
And then but then when you stop and think about it, which you shouldn't do, you realize that we don't know anything about anything.
Well, if you want to have a nice trip down, like, the dark hole of that, and have a bad day, then yeah, you can think about that.
Right, exactly.
How much we don't really know.
I felt like that's when I knew that I was ready to graduate. When I was like, you know what? No matter how much I get done, we still don't know anything about anything.
Right?
Oh, I mean, yes, it doesn't mean I'm not making a dent. It just means that, like, compared to the entirety of information, I'm definitely not making a dent.
Mm, it's the little blip on the circle.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a conversation about this, and I went to a Halloween party, and there were these guys who were talking about the even as technology advances and we're able to see as like wider and smaller things, like the
Mm-hmm.
scale of what we can look at it expands and contracts. There's still going to be um, that much that we can't, the larger things that we can't see or the smaller things that we can't see. So there's always going to be something. We're always going to be chasing after something. It's never going to stop.
Yeah, there's never going to be a time when we know everything.
No, and I mean, I guess to put a positive spin on that, I guess that keeps our industry alive, and also,
You mean job security?
yeah, right. But also, if we did know everything, then what could we be doing research on then?
Yeah,
Would
I
we
mean,
just like relax?
one of the best parts of our universe is there's so much to know.
Yep.
Like, I feel
Um,
like anyone would get bored just like knowing everything.
yeah, I agree. Because then it's like, okay, you have the answer for everything.
Now what?
Yeah, that's great. Now what are we gonna do?
Right? Exactly.
Why do I like, anyway, I'm gonna. So I'm curious of how of your creation process in terms of your comic. How did you go about? Do you have the story written out, or well, you experienced it, so okay. But do you have like your panels already figured out and everything? Everything's drawn out? Do you spend time like do you do each portion of the story in segments or
So this one, I so this one I wrote the script first,
hmm.
and then I later on I did a like just a sketch version, so I can actually show you.
Hmm.
So I knew that I wanted it to be like a scrolling comic,
Ah,
and so I just kind of like figured out a width, and then where is it? Sketch.
oh there. You got your thumbnails.
It's here somewhere. Well, I can show you some of it at least, because
Okay.
I did some of it on my like tablet,
Hmm.
but you can see like here. Let's make it bigger so you can actually see it. So here, just like sketching out what I wanted it to look like,
Hmm.
and like images that I would use along the way, and where the text would be,
Mm.
and then I went in and like kind of just fleshed that out a little bit.
Mm.
Um, and then so here's like the end. Um, and so like obviously there's some things that have like no detail, like just
Hmm.
example. But I wanted to get the basic idea out, and then as I've been going on to like create it, I've been kind of realizing that certain things could be
Oh
um,
wow,
collapsed. Oh, this.
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
one day. So I draw a lot of mandalas when I need like to just chill.
Hmm.
And so one day I was just doing one just for fun, and I had a lot of time, and so I just kind of like did it. And then I was getting back into this comic, and I had been trying to figure out this concept of like pieces of yourself that all make up the whole, but they're all very different. And I realized, you have different levels of mandalas and different levels of complexity,
Mm-hmm.
and all of those different pieces. And I was like, you know what? That's not a bad metaphor. And I've been having a lot of trouble coming up with what this metaphor should be. And since I had just drawn it, I was like, oh, huh, that's
Nice.
interesting. And so I decided to use it. And it's also like an asset I can reuse throughout. And I also
Mm-hmm.
like, I had already been kind of using the colors that I had been planning to use for this anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I decided to put it in here, and then I was like,
Nice.
oh no, I have to up my game of the art because I made the mandala so pretty.
They're so detailed, so you have to like
Yeah,
have everything else.
exactly,
And that's so cool because like it's a process. It's not like laid out. You came up with something and then you incorporate it into it.
exactly,
Yeah,
and I mean that's
that's
kind of like
awesome.
I try to plan things out as much as I can, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
yeah,
it's like an
and
experiment.
again, like it really is, and every piece you do is like an experiment, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you just drew that mouse over and over again, that pose,
I kind of did that there.
and, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah, I
if you
know.
drew the same thing over and over and over again, then funny how many artists I've drawn the same concept over and over and over again, but with maybe some slightly different colors. But like that's all
Mm-hmm.
they can do, and they do like these live streams, and so they have to draw something pretty. And yeah, they just end up doing the same something very similar over and over again. And I'm like, I would
Yep.
get bored. Like every time I draw something, I'm just like, what can I do different? Like, how can I try something new, do a new technique?
Yeah. And that way you're like expanding your repertoire or just like,
Yeah,
having fun.
exactly. I don't know. And I'm not sure if that's the scientist in me or if that's everyone. I feel.
But it's definitely looking there's a lot more than you've gotten a lot more done than last stream. I'm like, wow, this is looking really pretty.
I know. I can't wait. And I still got to go do through and get the backgrounds and get the flow, but it's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're working on one piece, and you'd have the same thing. I know you always talk about this too. When you're working on one piece, so like I just worked on the face,
Mm-hmm.
um, it just feels like you're not getting anything done. But then when you zoom out and you see, whoa, like I'm halfway through, then it's like, wow, like I have gotten something done. My problem is always I get to the end and I go back to the beginning and it looks very different quality and style wise.
Ah,
No,
I
I
gotta
have that
redo the whole
problem.
thing.
Oh no. Yes, though. I have
That.
done that. That's actually a lot of the reason why I don't. I have several comics, but none of them
Mm-hmm.
are. I don't share them because I. That's the problem I run into. I get to a point where it looks so different from the beginning that I'm just like, well, starting over.
Yeah, that was what I was struggling with my grant. I would write. I had bits and pieces of it written, and then I tried to incorporate it. But I'm like, this doesn't sound right. So then I spend a lot of time rewriting it, and I'm like, wait, no, I have it written, but it doesn't sound right, and I could just edit it to like I don't know. My mind just thinks, oh, it's not. It's
Yeah.
this isn't. the same thing. I gotta just start over.
Whenever anyone would give me comments on my papers in grad school, I'd be like, "Oh, you're right. It just sucks. Let me start over." And like, and people would have to tell me like, "No, just make the edits." And I'm like, "Yeah, but the edits like bring up a much bigger problem." And they're like, "No, just edit it."
I have that problem.
Sometimes you just have to get things done.
Yeah, I had that problem with a current manuscript I have now. I'm like, I have to do all of the things. I have to do more experiments.
Yeah.
And it's like, no,
Yeah.
just address the comments.
Yeah.
But
my final paper for my PhD just came back from review, and they want, I think it's rather minor revisions, but they do want a like a network analysis done on, which is like, I'm not really sure that it's appropriate for the analysis, but it's an ingenuity pathway analysis that they want done. And so I haven't emailed my advisor back yet because I haven't quite decided what to do about it, but we'll see. But yeah, you look at it and you're like, oh, but the reviewer was right about this, and oh, that is a problem. And it's funny because my advisor is just like, no, they're wrong.
And sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like you have a good point, but it's not relevant to the current study. Or
exactly.
No, you're just trying to show off. Or
yeah, you just want me to cite your paper, right?
Speaking of papers and edits, one of my colleagues, she submitted a paper to and got reviews, and it got accepted. But she got this email from a professor who does similar research, whose research is on the topic that the paper was on, and he was like, "Well, that's great, but it's too bad that you forgot to cite this paper," and he lists this paper, which is, she was using a new technique and pretty much just validating what he found, but because she didn't cite it, he felt it necessary to say something. And it's like, dude, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just felt that it was kind of strange for someone to just pop up. I know he was an established professor, and
that shouldn't matter.
He published a lot on this subject, so it's like, I guess I understand his point that she should have probably cited him for posterity, but I don't know.
But I've definitely had papers where someone said like, you should cite this, and as one of their comments, and we just did, like, we just found a place to cite it to make them happy.
Yeah.
And resubmitted, and like they were happy with that.
Yeah.
It's funny how that kind of vanity, and again, not that people don't deserve to have their research, especially when they're a leader in the field. They definitely deserve to have that research cited, but giving people a hard time, I don't know.
What are they gonna lose? We already know that you're established. Picking on a junior researcher, I don't know.
Especially by making their paper something that isn't going to be not accepting their paper because of it. That seems like a pretty wild thing.
You must recite.
And I feel like journal editors don't do enough to make sure that the reviewers are being ethical.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't. I mean, I've had some good editors. Like I've had some comments where it seemed unreasonable. Like they would recommend something unreasonable. Like do this experiment, which is going to take 6 months, but our um, response time is 3 months. So I've had some editors side with me when in my point by point saying, "Hey, I can't do this," and they're like, "Yeah, I totally understand." But
That's good.
there, I've also heard of stories of people of just comment reviewers just going off and saying some of the rudest things, and it's just not helpful, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
I
not.
know.
No. Yeah.
I know one of the papers that the other grad student in my lab had to do. They had a year worth of revisions that they had to do, extra experiments, and the editor was like, "Yeah, go do those experiments."
Are you kidding me? Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then they came back after they did the experiments. They sent it back to those reviewers, and then the reviewers said, "No, we're not taking it."
After they addressed all their concerns.
And
Wow.
like after after they to redo all these experiments and do all of this stuff, and again, like, why would the editor allow that to happen? Like, I would think the editor should say something like, we just can't accept it because because they're asking for more than you can do in a reasonable amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
or when they come back, be able to say, look, they did everything you wanted. We need some kind of like remediation to make sure that we haven't just wasted a year of their time when they could have gone to another journal.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Or the editor should have the final say. I don't know.
Yeah, and I review it. I agree that we need others to look at our work, valid or
Mm-hmm.
not.
Yeah.
But I think we also all know that some people take advantage of that and use that
Yeah.
power unethically. I know I had a paper that was sent in for review, and it was two of the reviewers really liked the paper, had no problems with it, just wanted the analysis done slightly differently, which wouldn't have been a
Okay.
lot of work. And then the last reviewer, well, I don't know which one it was, but the final reviewer um, completely missed the point of the paper.
Oh,
We
I hate
used
those.
a word, and they thought that word meant something else.
Mm.
And they wrote a lot of comments about how like what we said wasn't true. But that was because they got the word wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we wrote back to the editor and we said, look, they misunderstood the paper. This is what they thought. They're completely right about that, but this is what we were presenting, and it has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with what they were talking about. So we would like a different reviewer. Like, just send
Right.
it to someone else. Like, we're not saying ignore what that person said. Just find another reviewer. And they said no. The reviewers have spoken. We're not even going any further. Which
What?
yeah, I thought that was really interesting way to handle
Oh
that.
man. Like,
I don't miss uh, having to do papers and deal with all of that.
like, man. I guess I've been fortunate, but I've also heard of stories of of reviewers just being nasty and
Yeah, I've heard of reviewers who like personally attack, say like nasty things, like specifically about the authors, or say
yeah.
like you obviously don't know what you're doing, and saying calling people idiots and things like that. And I'm like,
Ooh,
oh.
now, yeah.
In
That's
some
totally
ways,
unprofessional.
Yeah, and in some ways, I don't even think the editor should allow that to get to the
Nope, not
author.
not at all. But the whole review process, it is voluntary. No one's being paid to do this stuff.
Yeah, but if the people who are doing it to get a power trip,
Yeah,
then that's its own issue.
like take your aggressions elsewhere.
For real.
This isn't really helping anyone.
And it's sad actually in a lot of ways because um, when I think about my understanding of the peer review process and how it should work is that um, you should be judging the quality of the science
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that all the experiments were done with quality and integrity and
Mm-hmm.
reported in a reasonable and scientific fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying, I don't think that reviewers should be saying your interpretation of the data does not align with mine and therefore shouldn't be accepted. I think you
Right.
can say there's not enough evidence for that. Like, we
Yeah.
need this evidence in addition to what you have to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've heard too many stories where editors are just like, no, your interpretation is wrong, with no backup for why.
Yeah. Therefore, we can't accept it. And it's like, but
Right.
what happens if it's something that goes against the convention? It's
Of
like,
course, exactly. We're like, that's what we should be. We should be making sure we're doing that.
yeah, always testing, it's like there's something to be said about replication experiments.
Exactly. I was just
Be-
thinking that.
because it's like, yeah, I don't think we should be accepting something as fact if it's not reproducible. I mean, I thought that's the definition of a theory that people misuse all the freaking time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I understand, but the theory is something that's reproducible and replicatable, and I think there's not enough of that because we're more concerned about something being novel.
Yeah. Well, and we're concerned about that because we have journals telling us that
Yeah,
that's all we should be concerned about.
but that's not
That's why they
really.
accept
But and people are going to think, oh, it's published, so it must be true. So then someone
it.
goes to try to replicate that or expand on that, but they can't because some like their conditions aren't um, exactly the conditions that were used for the previous experiment. So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, you must be doing something wrong, and then you spend so much time troubleshooting, and you end up like maybe giving up on the whole thing. It's just like, oh, or maybe
Yeah.
if you're able to publish those findings with those certain parameters, then people will get a better understanding of, oh, it doesn't work with this, but it works with that. It doesn't work with this. I know there was one group that was actually looking into doing this kind of stuff. And they did, it was,
Mm-hmm.
what was it? Was it TBI or was it spinal injections? I think it was TBI. And they were trying to replicate the findings from like several seminal papers, and they found that the angle of the injection that you give the drug actually makes the difference. And how would you
Wow.
have known that if someone didn't try to reproduce it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there'd be people who try to reproduce and they're like, oh, I can't get it. I don't know what's going on. Oh, it's you. You know,
Mm-hmm. I mean, robustness studies in general are incredibly important,
yeah,
right? Like, and it's actually, I think it's really sad that we don't require interesting novel papers to then also show that the results are robust. Like
Mm,
obviously we need reproducibility studies because we have to show it also works in other labs and it works in other people's hands.
yes.
But robustness studies, I think, are also pretty important.
Mm, yeah. It's like, is the effect actually really significant, or are you just meeting that p-value of 0.05?
Yeah, or like, did you just get lucky with your
Hmm.
sampling, or was your sampling biased for some reason? And this is why we have all these problems with now saying, oh, you can't just use male mice, when it's like
Hmm.
they should have known from the very beginning that it was problematic just to use male mice. Like,
Yeah.
that's not like these people aren't stupid. They knew that that was not like robust enough, but that was how they could get the results they wanted.
Yep.
So anyway, we're about out of time.
Yes.
So I don't didn't get a lot done today. I feel like I'm pretty far. I agree, I'm pretty far, but pretty much what I wanted to get done today was getting this head
Hmm.
shaded, and I'm really happy with it actually.
There you
Uh,
go.
so I'm glad that I spent the time on that. How about you? You got some adorable mice. Oh, look, they're sleeping.
Yeah. So I was just having fun, sketching some mice. I'll work on the anatomy offline, but yeah, I
Yeah.
I got a lot. I drew some mice, and
Is
I'm
that one
happy
an
with it.
Atita?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
I don't know
What a,
why.
what about the ones that are going in like a circle
Circle.
or
So that's. I guess I was just playing around with a potential pattern, just having them do that. But also, I remember, at least with mice that I've taken care of, sometimes they would go like in circles, and
mm,
I was just trying to replicate that. But yeah,
very cool. So
yep.
we are doing this again in December. I don't remember the
Mm-hmm.
date. Um,
14th, I think. Or are we
and
doing one the 23rd? No, that's too far in.
and who do we have joining us? Beata.
Beata, yes.
And so I do you know what our topic's going to be yet, or what's going on?
Um, she wants to talk about metaphors.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's December 14th. We will be talking at 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep.
And you should join us because Beata's an amazing artist, and I really
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait to hear what she has to say about metaphors. I've written a couple blog posts about it, but I've also had a lot of arguments with people about metaphors too. So
Hmm.
I'm really excited to hear about it from a visual person. Mostly that's with like science writers. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested to also have the same conversation with artists and see what we have to say.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Jen, for joining me, and for everyone who is watching this either live or watching the archived version. You can watch the archived version on my Periscope or on my YouTube channels. All of those links are available on my website at gaiusjaugustus.com/SciArt dash live stream. And you can get to that link through my Twitter profile as well. So thanks again, Jen.
Thank you.
Great talking to you.
All right.
We'll see y'all again in a few weeks.
Bye.
Bye.